Spirit guide us. We, the mountain born, with spear and cunning. A new hunt dawns.
Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So it's been a while since I've put a video up. I've been away and whatnot, but it's a good time to get back into the gist of things. So obviously we've got the announcement on the 27th of March for the 0.2.0 patch, which is coming out for Path of Exile 2. Now, what we obviously know is this is a full reset. So it's an economy reset, which is much needed at this stage of the game. And hopefully it'll bring back a bit of a normalized set of numbers because the PoE2 numbers are dropping off a bit. And that's obviously because there hasn't been a lot of servicing on the game. Now, there was a news post put out today, and that's what we'll talk about next. And we're not going to focus like on a full 10 minutes talking about a single news post of 2 teasers. That'd be crazy. But anyway, we're going to have a look at some of the other stuff that's come out because I haven't really featured any PoE2 content for a little bit. Obviously been playing Frisia, and I am keen to get into PoE2. Now, the question around will I play Last Epoch or will I play Path of Exile 2, because they both come out at the same time, I'm probably going to focus on Path of Exile 2 because while Last Epoch's a fantastic game, I am a little more invested in the Path of Exile 2, and I do really want to see the game do well. Now, obviously, I've had negative comments about Path of Exile 2 in elements of it, and I'm really hoping the 0.2.0 patch will start to pull the game in the direction that is sort of accommodating for players that like playing armor, and also will focus on a lot of endgame issues that exist currently in the game. And, you know, part of that is because they did rush an endgame out so that there would be one present in the game. Arguably, was that the best choice? I don't know. You know, it's up for debate and whatnot, but I do want to see Path of Exile 2 succeed. So I'm super keen to dig into some of the stuff. And I think with some of the teasers for the new items coming out, like there's a new hammer, we'll talk about it shortly. The damage numbers look pretty good. There's still some blaring issues when it comes to gem level scaling, which is void on the weapon. It doesn't really have anything like that on the weapon, but it does give you some pretty cool attributes. So I think maybe some of the unique weapon scaling is going to be really good. And also from the announcement today, potentially it's sort of a bit of a hint as to what is to come. And I'm hoping that involves swords, because that means strike skills would be in the game, and I'm really super keen to play swords and axes, because hammers really aren't my jam, at least in the form that they're in Path of Exile 2 right now. And I really hope that, you know, it's going to be a pretty cool class. We'll talk about what it could be in a few moments. But yeah, anyway, also, if you do like this channel, don't forget to like and sub to it. We're going to be focusing on a lot of Path of Exile 1 and 2 content, and also Titan Quest, because I've got to do a review on the demo for that, because it's quite a good game and I do really enjoy it. And as I said, like Last Epoch, we'll probably do some cover off on that over the coming weeks leading into the expansion that's coming out. But I think my real core focus is going to be Path of Exile 2 at this stage. Anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so as per the I guess teasers that came out today, and this is for Dawn of the Hunt, which is again the 0.2.0 patch. So basically, this looks pretty cool. Like, it looks like there's unique like guardians that are in essences. So there's a big update that's coming into essences, and we'll go through that when we go through some of the curated early access changes. So Dawn of the Hunt introduces a new selection of endgame encounters. So the Blazing Guardian. This is really interesting. I'm not too sure like what this actually is, but it was actually quite difficult to get greater essences in the game, even if that was achievable in Path of Exile 2 in the like nearly 400 hours that I played. I think I only had one greater essence that was accessible. So this is like new endgame encounter content, which we'll get in maps, which is actually really good because like maps are pretty barren and bare right now. So I really like this. This is probably going to be pretty dope and maybe challenging too. It looks like a bit of a challenging, like weird monster sort of thing. Yeah, so that could be really interesting. Sort of just zooming in on there, get a better look at it. And so then we come down to the real interesting part of this. Here's the art for another Ascendancy coming to an existing class in Dawn of the Hunt. So obviously we're getting the Huntress into the game, and we'll look at some gameplay footage from going back a fair while. You know, could be basically what it starts to look like. But basically, it's got this little flavor text here. You hunger for power and force and by force of arms you will take it. This looks like a Forge Master. So basically, like, this is very similar to last Epoch has a class that's like this essentially. But the thing that's really interesting about this is the fact that, like, yeah, okay, we got to focus on single hand melee. Now, I'm a big fan of single hand melee at this stage. I've played like a number of single hand melee builds, and you can scale this with Hoa, which is Hands of Wisdom, an action, whatever it's called. What's really intriguing about this could be like dual maces, or it could also be like swords, or like sword and mace or something like that. Now, it'd be really interesting if that was the case, because I always suspected that swords wouldn't come into the game until the gladiator class gets added. So for anyone who doesn't know, the gladiator class is taking the form of the old duelist class out of Path of Exile 1. So when we hovered over the website basically says gladiator class moving forwards. But yeah, this would be really interesting to see what this is. Obviously, this will be the warrior class, so this doesn't look like it would be the berserker class. And this is consistent with the warrior class and what it's all about, which is like forge mastering, yeah, forge master, sort of all that sort of stuff. It's the same sort of art, so it's an ascendancy that would be, based in the warrior. But yeah, I reckon it's going to have something to do with single-handed weapons in particular, and potentially they're going to introduce it with swords. But it'd be a little inconsistent with the way the Ascendancy works, but maybe the third Ascendancy is going to be like an off Ascendancy or something of that nature. Either way, I'm actually pretty excited by this because, like, dual wield, there's a lot of nodes in the tree that are really focused around dual wield and stuff like that. So we'll obviously get these details in the next few days, and we'll load up a live stream and everything for the 27th. So it's going to be a pretty exciting day. I'm pretty G'd up for that day, to be honest with you. I might take the day off and do some content on when we get in the 0.2.0. We'll cover patch notes and stuff like that, because I'm hoping for some pretty significant changes in the endgame, but this is probably one that I'm more excited about than even the Huntress. I am actually pretty keen on the Huntress. The class that I'm really holding out for right now is the Templar, because it's like all flail, heavy armor, and like elemental, like shield skills and stuff like that. And that to me is like my play style. But at this stage, this looks pretty cool, so I am sort of intrigued by this. So this is just a couple of the teasers. I assume we're going to continue to get more teasers over the next few days. So let's have a look at what they've already released, and have a bit of a talk about that, and then we'll have a bit of a talk about some of the things that I hope will be coming into the game and fixing some of the existing problems that exist with Path of Exile 2. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen this sort of stuff, or, there's probably been a ton of videos done on this and whatnot, these are some of the other announcements that have been released for the 0.2.0 content patch. So this is going to be a pretty significant patch, as I noted at the very start of the video. So the first one is weapon lock teas.
Weapons to take advantage of the skill tree's weapon set system? Well, in Path of Exile 2's 0.2.0 content update, we're making a quality of life change that lets you use the same weapon in both weapon sets.
So what that basically means is, obviously, now you'll be able to use the same weapon in both the slots in your inventory, which will apply to your skill switching and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't think that's a huge change. Some people may argue and say, oh, it's life changing. I think it's a cool change, though. Yeah, so not a bad change overall. Anyway, let's go to the next one down. All right, we've mentioned that we're adding a plethora of new support skill gems. So the first one is Battle Shout. I'm actually pretty keen on Battle Shout. So basically, it's just like a big, like, AoE battle cry explosion sort of thing. I actually think this is going to be pretty powerful, potentially. And especially, in particular, armor break's really strong. This is like a real warbringer sort of skill, in particular because, like, you've got all the war cry nodes that apply to that Ascendancy as well. So this is actually probably going to be pretty powerful, to be honest with you. And the other one was Perfection Teaser support.
Prepare yourself. Bullseye.
All right. Okay, so to unpack this one, the biggest issue that I see with this particular skill is it really just doesn't fit into the way that the end game works. So what they're showing here, it looks like they're showing, there's no trinket in here. So it looks like they're just showing campaign footage of Act 3 at this stage, which is like somewhere in like the bog or whatever. The problem is like, I don't know how this would scale. Maybe this scales quicker, like you can like, it takes less time to like charge it up or whatever. But the reality is like you're constantly getting swarmed even when you're mapping and stuff like that. And so the pace of this skill doesn't really fit with the pace that the end game moves in. Like generally, like when you're playing those like T15 waystones and whatnot, you're just getting absolutely mobbed more than often. And you know, maybe you can like chain this together and cause a big explosion or something like that. But I feel like this is just like inconsistent with the current end game design, or maybe they're going to slow the whole game down based on what I can see here. This could be an indicator of what their direction is, which is what they said they would do. And I don't agree with like the attribute stacking, like total nuke builds and stuff like that in Path of Exile 2, because I would have anticipated it to be slower. So maybe this is a skill that's alluding to the correction of the pacing of the end game, or maybe it's just not going to be used because it's inconsistent and doesn't really fit in with how the game is currently designed, and they're just sort of getting the skills into the game to see how they can retailor them or something like that. You know, only time will tell. So the next improvement was they're improving the visuals for essences. So if we zoom up, we can see what essences really look like now. So they looked pretty lackluster in Path of Exile 2 as they were. This is sort of like more of what we would expect with essences for PoE 2. Currently, they sort of look like PoE 1 essences. They very closely resemble PoE 1. So this is a nice change. Also, we have some new Ascendancy classes. Here's an illustration for one. I wonder which guy, what this guy specializes in. This here, sword and board. And I didn't really notice this until I started looking at this. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get a few of the Ascendancies for the other classes that are already in the game. So that's this guy here. Sword and board is awesome. If they're going to go Merc sword and board, actually, the Witch Hunter is a really good melee character. Like if you stack Hoa and do like double mace and stuff like that, it's really good. And the other big advantage is the Witch Hunter has access to a lot of, well, not just the Witch Hunter, but the Merc has access to a lot of sword nodes or potential sword nodes, shield nodes, and everything else, which would explain why it's in that sort of ascendancy area. And this sort of leads me to believe that potentially the third ascendancy to each class is going to be like an off ascendancy. So it's going to be like you're going to have two crossbow ascendancies, like, you know, or the Gemling Legionnaire, for example, can be anything. And then the last one is going to just be some wild ascendancy that's going to be totally off kilter, or it could be a more traditional ascendancy, something of that nature. So, like for example, with the Witch, we may actually see the last ascendancy. I have a suspicion that it will just be straight up a necromancer. But I might be wrong. Who knows? But this is really cool. If this is going to be the case, then I'm really keen to play this. The problem is, like, I'm super keen to play the Huntress, but if they announce ascendancies that use sword and board, I'm probably going to play that because I love sword and board and I love playing melee. Obviously, I like Bone Shatter and all that sort of stuff in Path of Exile 1. So if this is the case, and in particular, like the Forge Master's a sword class or like a two-handed sword class or something like that, I'm really down to play this. This is like moving in the direction of what I wanted for Path of Exile 2. I wasn't really keen on the warrior because of slam skills. I'm not really a big slam skill player. I like playing strike skills and stuff like that. So this is really like moving into the Jorgen wheelhouse of making a really tanky melee character, not like high evasion or like dodge and stuff like that, which is what I was messing around with. But this could also be alluding to the fact that maybe they're going to fix up the way that armor works as well, which I'm really hoping is the case. Because right now, one of the big limitations around builds like this is you either have to go like max shield block, or you need to go like Giant's Blood to have a two-handed weapon in your single hand. But there wasn't really a lot of armor, just wasn't working, and like I tried multiple times to get it working, and when you get to endgame, it's just bad. And then you go back to playing like max dodge, and you're like, why would you play armor? So I'm really hoping that this is indicating a big improvement to armor, how shield sort of block works and stuff like that as well. And like block's already really good. but also not overly reliable. Like it's strong, but you know, you need something else there. So I'm hoping that this is a start to something really cool because yeah, I'll definitely be getting in on trying to make a build with this now, and hopefully you won't need Hoa. The other big thing with the Merc as well, there's a lot of bleed nodes in there too. So if they're adding swords in, we're probably going to get bleed skills, which is really cool because bleed dot could be quite powerful. So you know, we've got like, was it wound aggravation and stuff like that. That's really close to where this this ascendancy or this class starts. So yeah, those are some other considerations for that one. All right, so they also showed off a few of the new items in the game. So this is obviously Prism Guardian. So this one was really big actually because this would be like where you would reserve, in Path of Exile 1, you would reserve life, and this would just have like reduced reservation. The big change here is they've changed this to like +1 maximum spirit per 50 maximum lives. So you're going to be able to run more auras and stuff like that if you're doing life stacking with this. So this is going to push you to want to life stack, which is like almost like the opposite of how it was approached in PoE 1. Like stat wise, is this the best shield? Like it doesn't really matter because of block chance. And if you're life stacking, you got a ton of spirit, you can pretty much buff this up ridiculously. I think like, I don't know if this is going to be one of those 1C items that gets added to the game like many of the uniques in Path of Exile 2 right now, but potentially there's a lot of really good uses for this, especially on the like the Infernalist or even there was the blood mage and stuff like that. Like this potentially is going to be really good. It could also be really good on the warrior too because you got access to a lot of life, or well, you don't really stack life on that, but there's access to a lot of strength nodes which could synergize with this really easily to stack a lot of life. But arguably this could be really good. The other one which looks really cool is the deepest tower, Spirit Bone, was it Spirit Bone Crown? So basically the stats are starting to improve on some of these. So enemies in your presence count as being on low life. So I'm not too sure what uniques exist in the game currently that synergize with increased damage with low life, but that arguably could be really powerful if there are a lot of attributes, like if you could apply automatic vulnerability, like was it the Coward's Trial or whatever in Path of Exile 1, then having enemies on low life could actually be really useful. The other thing too, like it's got a pretty good amount of chaos res, a decent amount of life as well, and it's got a decent amount of armor. I'm not too sure about why it would have ES, but the stat attributes required are pretty low as well. So arguably this could actually be a decent unique. I'm not too sure at this stage, but yeah, it could be quite good. Now the next one's a bit contentious. So basically in the 0.2 update, they're making towers that can spawn with mechanics, including bosses. Towers will also be able to have content added by tablets from other towers, so you'll be able to juice towers. I think like this is a bit of cope, so we'll just watch this.
In the 020 update for Path of Exile 2, we'll be giving all content the ability to spawn in tower maps, including bosses. This means towers will have the same clear requirements as regular maps, and you'll need to fulfill these requirements in order to activate the tower. Towers will be able to randomly generate with content on the Atlas, and they'll be able to gain content from using tablets on other towers in this radius as well.
So there is a bit of a problem with how that works or how that'll work. So basically, the biggest issue that I see is like, are the towers going to have to be fully completed? Which means do you have to track down, backtrack, and get enemies, like find the rare enemies and packs like that? Or like, you know, are you going to be able to just go to the end objective and dodge all that stuff? Like that's the question I have around that, because that's actually going to make towers potentially more frustrating to complete. So I don't know what that's like, how that's going to work. I feel like they're just sort of converting towers into just everyday standard nodes. Maybe it's just like multi objectives. You can choose to complete the boss, or you can just move on to complete the tower. And I hope that's the approach they take with that. But yeah, this will be a really interesting one to see how this goes, because this could be either really good or really bad. So also in the updates that we've received so far is they're adding in a few new support gems, one of which I'm really keen on, but yeah, we'll get through that anyway. Let's have a look at these. So this one in particular, I'm really keen on. So Volcanic Eruption, because basically this is Molten Strike. This is a way that we can play Molten Strike and we can get a lot of AoE. Potentially we can totally abuse this. And if we're getting like a Forge Master class, this would make sense to be in the game. So this could actually be really powerful for melee. Think about this, right? If you're running Twin Mace and you're running the standard just like Mace Strike, right? You could do really fast strikes and you could do a lot of damage with this, run Hoa, and then just do absolutely tons of damage and just blast maps. And that's what comes to mind with this anyway. And you would potentially do that on either the Forge Master if that's decent, or you could do it on the third Ascendancy that looks like it's getting added in for the Mercenary class, which is going to be a melee-based character most likely.
Die once more.
So this is just fire to cold damage at the end of the day.
Stay dead.
So what's really interesting, like we just saw like Bleed, now we're seeing Ailment support gems. Now we didn't have a lot of synergistic gems that would work with stuff like Bleed, for example. This could actually potentially work with things like Bleed, and if they're adding in a class that has swords that focuses on Bleed and it's in the mercenary area, then this is like the sort of skill gem that you would add into the game to really synergize with that. Anyway, moral of the story, like these don't look bad at all. Like some of these are probably, but yeah, like at least we're getting new support gems. I think this is just like a snippet of what we're getting, by the way. I think we're going to get a ton of support gems because we do need a lot more support gems for the game to make builds feel better at the end of the day. And if we're getting sword skills, which it may be the case, and we're obviously probably going to get spear skills and stuff like that because we're getting the Huntress, right? So it's very likely we're just going to get an absolute mountain of new support gems, which would be really good. It would be like, you know, when the game first came out in December all over again, which might renew the hype and yeah, might actually open up some new build varieties that could actually create build diversity, because that's one of the biggest issues with the game right now as I see it. Okay, and the next two uniques, which was, I guess, the last updates that we got, was Bringer of Rain. This is actually an item that's in Path of Exile 1. And so basically, you can wield two-handed axes, maces, and swords in one hand. So it's basically Giant's Blood, but not at the cost of having to, like, you know, run Giant's Blood. It is at the cost of losing your chest piece. If you're running, like, max dodge characters and you can get around with sort of being able to, you know, you could work around not having the chest piece on that type of setup. This is arguably a fantastic way to do absolutely tons of explosive damage. The other thing is this could, like, instead of being, well, you know what, actually even better than this would probably be a really good setup for like a max block build, like a really, really chonky max block build. Would it be 100% reliable? Probably not, but it's actually probably going to work fantastically with a max block shield build that's got like high block probability, 75% capped. You'd probably be super strong with this, and because you can run that two-handed weapon really easily, no sweat. If we get two-handed swords into the game, that could be absolutely ridiculous and really cool. So I actually would be keen to try this item because I think it could actually be pretty useful. The next one is the Hammer of Faith Giant Maul. So we'll just sort of click onto that. Now, the thing that I noticed straight away with this is, like, it's 10% reduced attack speed, but you gain a random shrine buff every 10 seconds. Now, I'm not too sure how long those shrine buffs last, but I'm pretty sure they last for quite some time. And the other thing is, before, like, hitting it with, like, any buffs, right, or any or blacksmith's waystones, it's already at 488 DPS, which, like, it's not the highest DPS that you can get on a two-handed weapon, but it is actually quite good. And the other big advantage is the mana regeneration rate, which is a bit of a problem with the mana cost of skills, and I'm hoping that sort of gets remediated in the patch. So this could potentially be not a bad weapon at all. and could be falling into like the Forge Master synergy and stuff like that. Like, to think about it, if you had a really good shield and you ran this plus this, potentially you could have a pretty strong build on your hands, especially with random shrine buffs. But that was it for the last update that we got for it. Obviously, there's more updates coming in over the next few days, but yeah, it sort of looks like this is a much better direction for uniques to be taking, and it's good to see stuff like Bringer Rain make their way back into the game, because once upon a time that was a really, really commonly and widely used unique in Path of Exile 1. Okay, so what's my overall take so far from what I've seen for the big patch that's coming in? So some of the big pluses here are obviously we are getting a total like economy reset, which is a huge like plus, right? Because the economy is pretty scuffed in the current iteration of the early access. That being said, we haven't had any like major change with the early access for quite some time. We had a few patches through. What I'm hoping that we'll see, a few of the other things, unique items are looking significantly better. Obviously, we're getting more ascendancies, and I feel like over the coming days, and we'll cover off on this in videos, we're probably going to get a few more ascendancies out of this as well, and obviously the Huntress. You know, yep, we're only going to get one new class most likely. Then again, they might cram another one in. I'm really keen for the Templar though. Like, if there are any class to be added, Templar and Marauder are sort of the ones that I really want, which would be flails, more shields, and axes at the end of the day. But you know, that will come in due course. I'm not too sure about the tower changes. I just think they need to be removed. And there needs to be a better system. Even like the idle system in Frisia probably is a better system. But anyway, as it is, you know, at least it's a change and a positive change. And it looks like we're getting a lot of other content added to the game for the end game. I have a sneaking suspicion as well that we might get Bestiary as well. So just based on the Huntress themology, it would make sense for them to add Aina into the game again. And that would be really cool if they did, because Aina's a really popular character in the game. Outside of that, like, you know, I am like, what we're really going to get out of this is build diversity, I hope. So what I'm hoping is like we're getting new ascendancies, we can play new classes, a new class. Like obviously the Huntress is very close to like the Amazon out of Diablo 2. That's what it's sort of designed after. So I'm really hoping, you know, we'll be able to play like lightning javelins and stuff like that, which for me, I'm not a big bow. I don't like bow skills and I don't like crossbow skills. I know there are a lot of people out there that do like that, but for me, like spear skills are a lot more fun than playing like, you know, stave skills and stuff like that too, like spellcasting skills. And also you can do a lot more with that. There's a lot of spear nodes currently in the tree, and we'll probably notice some big changes to the pathing tree as well in certain areas. So there is that. Overall, I feel like this patch will set a bit of a direction in the way forwards. Now, some things that I obviously would like to see, pardon me, I always talk and my nose starts itching. Some of the things I would really like to see is reconsideration as to even like adding 3 portals in for endgame mapping just to make it more fun, or scale it up as you get to T16. You start at low tiers with 6 portals, and then as you gear your character up, you get, you know, fewer and fewer based on the rungs until you get to T15, sorry, where you have like 1 or 2 portals would be better. I just feel like that would be more fun. I'm hoping for like pretty good endgame changes too, like rebalancing across the board of enemies, ailments, and all that sort of stuff. A lot less ground dot. Like, I want to engage in content. I don't want to be like dodging ground dot from bosses and stuff like that. Like, even like the Ascendancy trials, that'd be really nice if we didn't have to like, you know, go through hell and back just to ascend for our 4th Ascendancy. You know, it's just not very fun at the end of the day. Some people will argue otherwise. Like, yeah, that's great if you want more challenge than what it's worth, but, you know, it doesn't need to be super easy. It just needs to not be as ridiculous as what it currently is. So tuning on that in that respect would be really nice. Obviously, changes to melee to make it more engaging, and that really comes back to retuning the game a bit. I want to see builds like the attribute stackers and whatever, like they shouldn't go away, but they really need to be tuned out and balanced across the board. And that means lifting up the skills that are underperforming and sort of decreasing the capacity of the higher level skills so there's a better, neat balance across the board. And that's currently one of the biggest problems. Like melee on the monk is fantastic, melee on the warrior is just painful. Part of that is like the set timer for wind-ups and stuff like that for slams. Just remove that, scale it with attack speed, make it fun. Like, you know, the game can be challenging and still fun, and that's one thing that I stand by. Um, yeah, those are some of the gripes off the cuff. And like the other thing is, again, rebalances across the board for uniques. It'd be really good to see Frost Breath be like a viable endgame sort of build setup. Um, yeah, and some of the other things is like we're getting a lot more support gems into the game too, which means a lot more support combinations, which will probably fix a lot of problems with some of the clunkier builds that do exist. You know, there are a number of builds that rely on build jank, and that's just not great. But anyway, those are some of the things that I have gripes with. You know, I would like to see fixed, especially just the end game. Like the end game as it is right now, and people say it's early access, and I understand that, but it is quite boring, and that's why there's player drop off in the droves. So it'd be good to see that get totally overhauled, so it's not just doing the same old crap day in day out. But yeah, anyway, we'll see how that plays out, and obviously it'll get a lot more end game content over time. But yeah, this is probably a really reasonable take for it. I just don't think it's anywhere near perfection. I think there's just so much missing from the game. It's really hard to judge that now. But I would like to see it make its way in the direction of being less difficult, more fun, even down to like decreasing unnecessary bloat to the map sizing when you're going through the campaign. That'd be really nice. Tuning some of the bosses to make them a little bit more favorable when you're leveling up, because leveling up shouldn't be a chore, especially if you're going to run multiple tunes. Things like allowing you to switch ascendancies when you like allowing you to change your ascendancy would be really nice. It's just no reason why it should be like character bolted and locked. It's not in Path of Exile 1, so why would it be in Path of Exile 2? I hope those are all things that they really look at and improve with this patch. Anyway, if you like this type of video and PoE2 content, let me know, and also give me some ideas on what you want me to cover for Path of Exile 2 in the comments below. And yeah, there'll also be some Path of Exile 1 content coming out. I'm going to do a State of Frisia video and also a bit of a Delve currency breakdown over the next few nights. But yeah, anyway, until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you guys on livestream.